I told him to leave. And I meant it. But when he turned toward the door, I took a step I couldn't take back. It started quietly, like most things that matter. My name is Isabel. I'm 49. I have a husband, a house, a cabinet of matching wine glasses. I remember picking them out on a rainy Tuesday years ago, when rain still felt like a backdrop and not a weight. Mark liked the shape of the stem. I liked that he had an opinion. We bought the full set and 2 extra, just in case. Just in case. That phrase sums up most of our marriage. Plans made with good intentions. Jokes softened over the years like frayed cotton. Love that became routine before I noticed the moment it stopped being something more. Mark is a good man. I say that without bitterness. Truly. He works hard. He folds his sweaters the same way every time and takes out the trash without being asked. He knows when my car is due for service and always offers to go with me, even when I say no. He doesn't drink the last of the milk, and he never forgets my mother's birthday. There is a steadiness to him that, for many years, felt like safety. And maybe it still is. But good and alive aren't always the same thing. I forgot that. Or maybe I learned to live without remembering. Until last Thursday. Until Daniel. Mark called me from the car. Is it all right if Daniel stays here for a couple of nights? He said it so casually, like he was asking me to pick up dry cleaning or defrost chicken. His hotel messed up the booking. Apparently some tech conference triple-booked everything nearby. I was in the kitchen, wiping the inside of the microwave. I paused. Of course, I said. The guest room's made up. Thanks, Issy. I owe you. He said it like it was a favor. It wasn't. Or at least, it shouldn't have been. Daniel is Mark's cousin. Second cousin, technically. A little younger. Mid-30s, maybe? I remembered him as someone vaguely lanky, all elbows and awkward laughter at family events. The kind of person who never quite outgrew adolescence, always 2 steps behind everyone else in the room. I hadn't seen him in years. I didn't expect him to arrive looking like that. He came in with a duffel bag over one shoulder and a bottle of red in the other. Casual. Polite. A little sheepish. I hope this is still your favorite. It was. Merlot. The good kind. I hadn't bought it for myself in months. Thanks, I said, trying not to make a face. You didn't have to bring anything. He smiled. My mother taught me to never arrive empty-handed. I almost replied with your mother taught you many things, but the words caught. They were too familiar. Too close. Instead, I gestured toward the hallway. Guest rooms down the hall, second on the right. Thanks, Isabel. He didn't call me Aunt Izzy, like he used to when he was younger. He said my full name, Isabel. Like he was trying it out. Like it tasted different now. That first night passed uneventfully. Mark and Daniel stayed up talking in the living room. I excused myself around 10, claimed a headache, though I didn't have one. I just wanted the dark. The quiet. The shape of my own bed without conversation. I heard them laughing from downstairs. Easy low. Daniel had a different laugh now, less boyish, more controlled. I found myself listening too closely. The second day, Mark left early for work. Daniel came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. His shirt was wrinkled, but clean. His hair still damp from the shower. Morning, he said. Good morning. We stood in silence for a beat too long. I poured him a mug without asking. He took it, our fingers not touching, but close enough to feel the air between. Still take it black? I asked. He nodded, surprised. You remembered. I remember most things, I said, not looking at him. He didn't sit. Just leaned against the counter and sipped. The kitchen was too small for that kind of presence. I felt him near me like a magnet I wasn't ready to name. I always liked this kitchen, he said. It's just a kitchen. No, it's you. I looked up. He smiled, not flirtatious. Just open. Honest. I didn't answer. That afternoon, I painted for the first time in weeks. Nothing ambitious. Just a small canvas, pale blues over white. Light strokes, the kind that feel like breathing when you get them right. I used to do this all the time, fill empty hours with color, emotion, movement. I told myself it was art, but mostly it was the only thing that made me feel. When Mark saw my paintings, he always said the same thing. You're so talented, Issy. You should sell these. When Daniel saw them, he didn't say anything. Not until that night. We were in the kitchen again. Mark had gone to meet an old friend for dinner. Something about a game they both wanted to watch. Daniel offered to help with dishes. I told him I didn't need help. He dried the plates anyway. We moved around each other quietly, without coordination, but without tension. Then, after the last glass was dried, he paused, looked at the painting leaning against the wall near the pantry. A finished one I hadn't touched in years. This one, he said. You did it when I was a teenager, right? I turned. How would you remember that? The colors stuck with me. Gray and blue. Like sky before a storm. He said it so simply, like it was obvious. I stared at him. He didn't flinch. You should go to bed, I said. It came out sharper than I meant. He didn't argue. Just nodded. Good night, Isabel. Good night. He walked to the stairs and paused by the doorframe. You're shaking, he said quietly. I hadn't realized I was. That night, I lay in bed with my hands under the blanket, clasped together so tightly the bones ached. My chest felt full in a way I couldn't explain. Like a balloon with no string. Like I might float off and never come back down. It wasn't about Daniel. Not yet. It was about me. About the way his voice didn't carry judgment. About the way he looked at my painting like it was something alive. About the way he noticed my hands. Mark hadn't noticed my hands in years. He kissed my forehead in the mornings. He squeezed my shoulder when we passed each other. His affection was always tidy. Folded. Predictable. There was nothing wrong with that. But something had gone wrong in me anyway. On the third day, I found myself looking for Daniel without meaning to, listening for his footsteps, hearing the sound of the guest room door creaking open and feeling something, not fear, not desire, just awareness. He was in the garden, crouched near the old rosemary bush, picking leaves with care. You cook? I asked from the porch. Not well, he said. But I like the smell. I nodded. That's the best part. He stood slowly. His jeans were smudged with dirt, his shirt untucked. The sun caught the side of his face, and for a second, I forgot he was Mark's cousin. For a second, he was just a man in the sunlight, looking at me. You always pause before you speak, he said. You think too hard. I've always been like that. I know. His eyes stayed on me. I turned away. That evening, Mark came home tired. Daniel offered to pick up dinner. I stayed back to finish sorting laundry. When I came downstairs, the kitchen smelled like garlic and red sauce. Daniel handed me a glass of wine without asking. I took it. We didn't talk much. Just moved in parallel. Our silences had grown familiar. At some point, I leaned against the counter near the window. My foot brushed his. I didn't move. Neither did he. The air held something. Not promise. Not threat. Just potential. Mark arrived 15 minutes later, apologizing for being late. Daniel stepped back without needing to be asked. I poured another glass of wine and didn't taste it. That night, I dreamt of blue and gray. Not the painting. Not the storm. Just a room with no walls, filled with wind. And someone standing in the doorway. Waiting. Not calling my name. Just waiting. Daniel was set to leave the next morning. Early flight. Mark offered to drive him. I stayed in bed, pretending to sleep. I listened to their voices downstairs. The way Daniel thanked us for hosting. The way Mark joked about next time. There was no next time. Not really. But something stayed. A presence. A pause. An echo I couldn't name. It's been 4 days since he left. Mark hasn't mentioned him. I haven't either. But every time I pass the spot near the counter, where my foot brushed his, where his fingers hovered near the drawer handle, I slow down. I breathe differently. I remember. Not what happened. What almost did. The almost can be louder than the fact. Some nights now, I sit in the kitchen with the lights off. Just a single candle burning. No wine. No company. Just the silence. I press my hands flat against the table and close my eyes. I try to remember what my body felt like before he said, "You're shaking." I can't. Because I'm still shaking. Even now. Even alone. "You're shaking," he said. And I was. But not from fear. From remembering what it felt like to want to be touched without apology. The first night after he left, I tried to go to bed early. I told Mark I had a headache again. He kissed my forehead, like always, like clockwork, and I hated that I flinched. It wasn't his fault. But my skin had changed. My breath. My body. Everything inside me had shifted in a direction I couldn't point to. Only feel. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling fan, counting each rotation like it could erase the memory of Daniel's eyes on me. It didn't. I remembered the shape of his words, the stillness between us, the fact that he didn't touch me not once. And yet I felt him, still. My body had never been particularly loud. I was never the kind of woman who needed to be noticed to feel real. But silence became unbearable once someone finally filled it. Not with noise. Just attention. That was all it was, I told myself. Attention. A woman notices being noticed when it's been too long. Mark worked late again 2 nights later. Something with payroll and deadlines. He called at 7. Said he'd be home by 10. I said okay. I didn't ask for more. I poured myself 1 glass of wine. Just one. I sat in the kitchen. Not out of habit, but because that's where the pause lived. The one Daniel had left behind. I didn't turn on music. I didn't bring a book. I just sat and remembered. When the doorbell rang, my heart stuttered. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door and there he was. Daniel. Same duffel bag over his shoulder. Same calm face. Same eyes that didn't rush. "Hi," he said. I didn't ask why. I just stepped back. He walked in like he had every right to. Not arrogantly. Just quietly. Like a man who knew he was making a mistake and had already decided it was worth it. "I thought you left." I did. He looked around like the air remembered him too. "Then why?" "I forgot something," he said. I waited. He looked at me. "You." I said nothing. He dropped the bag beside the bench and walked past me into the kitchen like he belonged there. He took in the wine bottle, the empty glass, the candles still flickering like I'd lit it for him. "Mark's working late," I said, more explanation than necessary. I figured. He poured himself a glass, sat down, and then we were there again. The same table, the same tension. Except this time, it didn't feel theoretical. It felt inevitable. He asked about the painting again. "Why did you stop?" I shrugged. Life. Routine. It stopped asking anything from me. He tilted his head. "And what do you ask from it?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I didn't remember the last time I'd asked for something. Not in the kind of way that could get me burned. The candle flickered between us. The shadows moved across his face. His eyes were darker tonight. Not from anger. just depth. You need to leave, I said. The words were soft. He looked at me. I meant it. I meant the house. I meant the conversation. I meant the way my heart beat like it had just remembered how. You need to leave. He nodded, stood, picked up the bag, walked toward the hallway, and then he paused, again by the doorframe. I didn't know where to look. Then he turned, and the pause thickened, like air before thunder. And I moved, closer, just a step. Not all the way, not into him, but enough to feel the shape of his silence. Enough to know I had crossed something, not a line, but a layer. He said nothing. Neither did I. He looked at me like I'd torn something open. I couldn't smell anything except the rain still clinging to his shirt. My fingertips twitched, but I didn't reach. I didn't touch him, but I didn't move away either. After a long moment, he exhaled. You're shaking again. I was. But not from fear, from recognition, from want. He didn't kiss me. He didn't lean in. He just stood there, watching the tremble I couldn't hide. And then he left. He didn't look back. Not once. The door closed too quietly. I stood in the hallway long after. The candle still flickered in the kitchen. I let it burn down. I stood until the wax cooled. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because what I felt wasn't sadness. It was fullness. A dangerous kind. The kind that changes how a woman walks into a room. Mark came home after 10. His hands were cold from the night air. He kissed my cheek. I missed you, he said. I smiled. I missed you too. And part of me meant it. The part still trying to be the woman he deserved. The next morning, I couldn't paint. I tried. Set out the brush. Chose a canvas. Mixed a muted green. But nothing moved. Everything felt staged. Nothing was burning. Because Daniel had taken the match with him. I didn't expect to see him again. But I did. 4 days later. In town. At the grocery store, of all places. I was holding a bag of clementines. He was by the coffee aisle. Our eyes met before we could pretend otherwise. He walked toward me like he was afraid I'd run. I didn't. You look different, he said. I haven't changed anything. You don't have to. We stood in the produce section with oranges between us. I almost laughed. Almost. How are you? I asked. He shrugged. Not sleeping much. Me neither. He didn't smile. He didn't flirt. He just looked at me. I wasn't going to come that night, he said. I know. But you were there. I was. That's all it took. I didn't argue. I couldn't. We didn't plan anything. We didn't exchange numbers. But I knew it wouldn't be the last time. And that night, I lay awake beside Mark, blinking into the dark, and felt more awake than I had in months. Because I'd crossed something. And even if I never saw Daniel again, I had already gone too far. The next time we were alone, it wasn't planned. Mark was supposed to be home, but he got stuck at the office. Called late. Apologized again. Daniel was dropping something off. A file. A jacket. An excuse, really. He stepped into the house like a ghost retracing a dream. I shouldn't be here, he said. I know. But I am. Yes. The silence came fast and heavy. He stood near the counter. I stood near the door. And that was all it took. The air folded around us. He moved first. Not fast. But sure. He stopped a breath away. His hands at his sides. No threat. No ask. Just presence. I remember your voice, he said, from years ago. You used to laugh differently. I used to be different. You still are. His eyes didn't waver. You were the first woman who made me want to be seen. I swallowed hard. You were a child. I'm not anymore. We were quiet again. My hands were cold. His breath was warm. I didn't move. He stepped back. "I'm not going to touch you," he said. "Not unless you ask." I almost did, but I didn't, because the wanting was loud enough. He left without saying goodbye. Again. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I painted in the dark. No light. No music. Just color. I didn't know what it was. But when I finished, my hands were shaking. And I didn't stop them. I told him to leave. And he did. But something in me didn't. It waited, curled, patient, just beneath my ribs until the next time I forgot to lie to myself. I became two women. One of them knew where the bills were kept, what time the trash needed to be out, how to plan meals around Mark's low-sodium goals. The other lived inside moments. Shadows. The heat that lingered on her wrist long after someone brushed past. She pressed her thighs together when folding laundry and wasn't sure if it was from guilt or memory. I wore both like a costume change. Seamless. Practiced. Mark didn't notice. Or if he did, he chose not to name it. That was our way, always gentle avoidance. Nothing loud. Nothing broken. Just a marriage shaped like furniture no longer moved. Daniel texted once. Just once. The message was simple. "Are you still shaking?" I didn't reply, but I read it 13 times. My thumb hovered over the keyboard so long it went dim. When I finally typed something, I don't know. I didn't send it. Because I did know. I was still shaking. Even when I was still. I told Mark I was going to visit my sister. He smiled, distracted, already halfway through an email on his tablet. "Tell her I said hi." "I will." I didn't lie about where I was going. I just let the assumption breathe. Daniel met me in a bookstore cafe. We didn't sit. Just stood among the rows of books neither of us opened. He didn't touch me. But his voice did. I shouldn't have come back that night. I shouldn't have opened the door. And yet here we were. Not regretting. Just existing. We sat outside. Cold metal chairs. Coffee cooling too fast. His knee touched mine once. I didn't move. "I didn't plan this," he said. "I did," I whispered. His breath caught. Just for a second. It was the most honest thing I'd said in months. Later, in the car, we didn't speak. I drove him back to his place. A quiet duplex with ivy choking one side. He didn't ask me in. He just looked at me before he got out. "You don't have to lie," he said. "To you. To yourself." He didn't wait for an answer. He just closed the door gently, like he was afraid of waking something. That night, Mark and I had dinner at home. Candlelight. A dish I'd made from a recipe I found in a magazine years ago, one I'd never tried. He smiled. "This is really good." "Thank you." He took another bite. "I love that you always try new things." I almost choked. He didn't know how long it had been since I tried anything that wasn't survival. The days blurred. I painted in bursts, jagged lines, sharp contrast, colors I couldn't name. Mark said they were bold. Daniel never saw them. But he was in them. Not in shape. Not in portrait. In temperature. They were warm and aching. Just like his breath had been when he stood too close without asking for more. One afternoon, I found myself back at that cafe. Alone this time. Just to feel the chair again. The corner of the table that remembered my elbow. The cup rim where his fingers had rested. He didn't show up. I didn't expect him to. But I still checked the door every time the bell rang. I told myself I had drawn the line. I told myself I was done stepping near it. And then I saw him again. At a fundraiser for the community center. A crowded, polite event filled with sugar cookies and fake laughter. He stood across the room, holding a paper cup, smiling at someone else. But when he saw me, his smile changed. It disappeared. And something deeper rose to the surface. We didn't speak that night. But when I left, there was a note under my windshield. If you ask me to stay away, I will. If you don't say anything, I'll know what that means too. I didn't say anything. I just folded the note and put it in my pocket. It stayed there for 3 days. We met again the following week. Not in a house. Not in a cafe. At a museum, of all places. He said it was better. Safer. No walls to betray us. No blinds to peek through. We wandered through quiet halls, pretending to care about abstract sculpture. "What do you see?" he asked me in front of a painting reds slashed through navy. Heat. Desperation. Something unsaid. He turned to me. "I see you." My stomach nodded. Not from fear. From the way his voice touched things I thought I'd hidden. We didn't touch. But when we stood by the restroom hallway, out of sight, our shadows overlapped. I didn't pull away. He whispered, "Just say stop." I couldn't. Because I didn't want to. The kiss was slow. Not sudden. Like a breath held too long. His hand brushed my waist. My cheek. My mouth. I opened for him the way rain opens ground, quietly, deeply. There were no apologies. Only breathing. Only heat. Only the moment where I let go of every line I'd drawn in pencil. I went home changed. My clothes smelled like museum marble and Daniel's breath. Mark was watching a documentary. He asked how my afternoon was. "Quiet," I said. He nodded. "I like when you get quiet," he said. "You seem at peace." I kissed his cheek. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. That night, Mark touched me in bed. Slow, gentle, familiar. I let him. I even responded. But something in me stayed folded. Not out of cruelty, but because I knew what it felt like to be opened by accident. And I couldn't forget it. Daniel and I didn't become reckless. There were no hotels. No lies told in panic. We met in small moments, grocery stores, book aisles, museum lobbies, once in the back lot of a community fair. He never asked me to choose. But I knew he wanted me to. I saw it in the way he stopped touching me when I didn't ask him to. One evening, in the old cafe, he leaned back in his chair. "You're disappearing." I blinked. "What?" "You're fading into your life again." "No. Yes," he said, not unkind. "And I get it. But I need more than moments. What do you want?" His voice softened. "Not to be a secret." That was the line. And we both knew it. I went home that night and stood in front of the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. Not because of what I'd done, but because of how much I wanted to keep doing it. Mark asked if I was okay. I said yes. And when I kissed him that night, it was with something new. Not guilt. Not distraction. But choice. Even if I was still lying to both of us. He said, "I don't want to be your shadow." And I couldn't argue. Because he wasn't. He was the mirror I didn't dare look into. Until now. He didn't wait for me to decide. Daniel had always been patient, in that particular way men are when they think time might still be on their side. But patience has a pulse, and I think his started to falter. He called one afternoon, which he never did. I answered because I knew what it meant. His voice was steady, measured. "I'm leaving." I didn't ask where. He wasn't the kind of man who said things like that without intention. "When?" "Tomorrow." I didn't ask if it was for good. Some part of me already knew it didn't matter. He wasn't the one who was leaving anything. I was the one who had to return. To my house. My husband. My routine. But not as the same woman. That part was already decided. We met one last time. No plans. No cafe. No museum. He asked me to come by before sunset. Said he was packing. The house was quiet when I arrived. He opened the door before I knocked. His face looked tired. Not worn, just thinner. Like something in him had gone still too long. I stepped in. He didn't speak right away. Just led me through the narrow hallway. Past the coat rack. Past the half-zipped suitcase. I followed him into the kitchen. Same counter. Same 2 stools. The same small lamp in the corner that made everything feel gentler than it should have. We sat. Close. Not touching. The quiet between us was different now. No urgency. No hunger. Just wait. I'm not asking anything, he said. I know you can't give me more. I wish I could. He looked at me. Not like a man scorned. Not like a boy who'd been left. Just a person trying to memorize a face. I don't regret anything, he said. Neither do I. Silence again. Then, but I don't want to be your shadow. I nodded. You aren't. He leaned in, not to kiss me. Not to tempt. Just to press his forehead to mine for a moment. A goodbye made of breath. I closed my eyes. I let it end. He didn't walk me to the door. I didn't ask him to. When I left, the light had shifted. The air smelled like rain, though it hadn't yet fallen. I sat in the car for a long time. Hands in my lap. Keys untouched. I wasn't crying. I wasn't relieved. I was full. The kind of full that doesn't need to spill. Mark greeted me that night with dinner and candles. He didn't know what I'd done. He didn't know what I'd ended. He only knew I looked different. You seem rested, he said. I smiled. I feel clearer. And that was the truth. Because I had stopped lying to myself. Weeks passed. Then months. Daniel never wrote. Never called. I didn't expect him to. I painted again. More often. More freely. Mark noticed. He complimented the boldness. The color. One morning, he even asked if I'd hang one in the hallway. I kissed him on the cheek. Thank you. We made love that night. And I was present. Not pretending. Not comparing. Not elsewhere. Just there. With him. In my skin. Not as a wife. Not as someone healing. But as myself. Because what Daniel gave me wasn't betrayal. It was return. To the woman I'd stopped noticing. Sometimes I walk through the kitchen and my feet still slow by the counter. The way they did before. But it's different now. Not ache. Not regret. Just memory. Of a pause. Of a man who asked nothing but for me to see myself again. And I did. He was the mirror. But I was the one who chose to look. Some things don't need to be repeated to matter. Once was enough. To wake something. To wake me. I don't expect you to understand. But if you've ever stood at the edge of your own life and wondered where you went, then you already do. Because the truth is, I didn't leave anything behind. I just came back to myself. And this time, I'm staying.